Today we'll meet 3 local film enthusiasts involved in an upcoming film festival that showcases the work of our own filmmakers here in Central Illinois. On Friday, April 12th, audiences will again get to see the diversity and creativity that is coming out of a flourishing film movement on the local scene. The people with us today are thoroughly immersed in the innovative films being made in our local communities. We'll hear about an opportunity for all of us to see some of this exciting work that reflects and enriches our lives in Champaign, Urbana. Hi, welcome to Art Now, a program where we talk to artists whose work is part of our community. We're sitting here in the 100-year-old home of the Art Theater in downtown Champaign. I'm Greg Chu, and I'll be your host. Our 3 guests, Jason Pankoke, Lisa Cerezo, and Luke Boyce, all are part of the upcoming April 12th New Art Film Festival, also known as NAF. First, it's my pleasure to introduce Jason Pankoke. Jason has a fascinating resume. He's originally from the Chicago suburbs. He came to Central Illinois to attend Illinois Wesleyan University, where he received his Bachelor's of Fine Arts in 1993. Within a few months, he'd moved to the Champaign area, and he became a blues DJ on WEFT. Then he got involved in the Freaky Film Festival in the late 90s, and is now a part of the Champaign Movie Makers and the Champaign Urbana Film Society, and even a podcast co-host. Jason has worked in publishing and printing for The Octopus, and is a book designer and editor at Adept Content Solutions in Urbana. He was the publisher of the independent film journal Microfilm, which has become CU Confidential, the movies of Champaign, Urbana, and the cities beyond. He's the organizer and program director for the New Art Film Festival. Thanks for being here, Jason.
Thank you.
Were you always interested in film?
I think so. I did not really take film making or film culture that seriously until I moved here to Champaign after I finished my undergraduate studies. I think I always had kind of that the dream of what if I could get into the film business, what if I could make some really cool movies. And when I was in grade school into high school, in high school, when I was in high school, video as an affordable medium was still kind of nascent. There was video, of course, VHS, as well as other lower quality formats that consumers, just average everyday people, could purchase the equipment and use it at home, etc. But of course, as far as its visual quality, so on and so forth, it wasn't even close to approximating what professional filmmaking could achieve. So through class projects on occasion, through backyard non-epics that never went anywhere on occasion, of course my friends and I dabbled in it, again mainly in high school. But we didn't take it that seriously, being younger. It was impressed on us to get, educations or go towards careers that would provide, as it were, as opposed to being pipe dreams. When I moved here to Champaign and got settled in my first year or 2 living here, and started exploring what was in the community, and maybe more importantly, who was in the community, I soon saw certain individuals, certain small groups that were doing something film-related, but not the classic, ooh, I'm going to move to Hollywood next month and go after my fame and fortune. And over time, particularly starting with the Freaky Film Festival, which you mentioned, I realized that creating film culture as kind of a loose bubble for what constitutes that. Film making, film promoting, film viewing, and in the case of what I do as CU Confidential, chronicling that activity. That film culture can happen anywhere if people get together and make it happen.
Well, film is such a collaborative art, and that's one of the real attractions, I think, of making art in Champaign-Urbana, is the opportunity to network with people like that. Well, so how did you get so involved with the local film? You mentioned the Freaky Film Festival. What was freaky about the Freaky Film Festival?
It was about being freaky. Absolutely. No bones about it. Freaky Film Festival was really my first taste of people coming together to see non-traditional movies, meaning not movies you're going to see at your local first-run theater, your local multiplex, not the movies that you're going to see as headlines in Variety or The Hollywood Reporter, so on and so forth. Freaky Film Festival was very communal. It ran for 4 years, from 1997 to 2000. It took place in the fall, mainly on campus, and it was a collection every year of short films and some long-form films that were definitely of a non-commercial stripe, what we would call truly independent or underground movie making for the most part. Films that a lot of times had very raw production values, that were very unrefined, yet had an energy, vigor, and or attitude that was a sight to behold. Some cases, not exactly in the most positive sense, but you got to see a variety of what filmmakers and maybe film artists, if you want to push the terminology a bit, could and would create, even if they had $50 in their pocket. And again, this was just, the timing of the Freaky Film Festival was just as digital video came into the consumer market, and people's eyebrows were arching like, what if, this, at least the video medium, let alone film itself, the actual film stock that, filmmakers have used for the past century or more. What if this new medium, this digital medium, could A, take off, but B, become affordable enough for filmmakers to really go nuts with their capabilities, what they possibly could do on their own, with their own teams of people, on a limited to a non-existent budget.
So you were in at the beginning, and then technology has kind of carried
I
you
think
along
so.
with the wave of
Yes.
innovation.
Yeah, I had very little experience with film festivals up until that point. During the Freaky years, I did go to a handful in Chicago, particularly the Chicago Underground Film Festival, which is just about to have its 20th anniversary show up in Chicago this month, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that something like a Freaky could take place and could have an audience here in Champaign-Urbana, that I think was most significant to me as far as what I got out of that experience, being a patron of that event as well as being a volunteer for the event the last couple of years.
Well, let's talk to our audience about film festivals, because when I started talking with you about the history of the New Art Film Festival, you said one cool thing begets another, which I kind of liked. How has the transformation of the art theater into a co-op fit into the mission of the New Art Film Festival?
Well, I think we still have to see how that's going to play out, and I can only imagine good things. I think that with a lot of our community now having a stake in what happens with this space and the business within it, what we know as the art theater, it's going to be very vital, and I think a lot of people who are owners and who receive the email bulletins and the online bulletins about what's going on here, hopefully they're not only going to get invigorated about coming to the art, seeing whatever the programs are, seeing the films, hopefully being interested in them and liking them, but also that the wheels are going to turn and they can bring in not only fresh blood as far as people who come and be patrons of the art and come and become owners of the art, but that the word will spread to people who they might know, who are filmmakers who are in the industry, who go, aha, I just heard about this really cool place in Champaign-Urbana where I want my movie to show.
Okay, well, and you're program director for this upcoming festival.
Yeah, blame me.
Okay, instead of Canada, huh? Tell me a little bit about what the program director does.
Well, right now, you know, it's something that I didn't think of the NAF being a signature event of the art theater. The first year that I did this event, when it really was not this event, was in 2009. It was a smallish, single evening event at Cafe Paradiso in Urbana. And it was meant to be more of a direct extension of CU Confidential. CU Confidential, there's an annual publication as well as a weekly online blog. And what they're meant to do is to kind of chronicle, again, like I said at the top, what film culture is in Champaign-Urbana, and to continually shed light onto people's accomplishments, as well to who those people are that are making the movies, helping put on events like the NAF or other events that are not the NAF that still kind of feed into what film culture is. With that show at Paradiso, I treated it like a sampler. It was mainly short films and trailers. There just was not the time with the block that I was given to really do something even like the full day of programming that we do each year for the NAF. So it was to test the waters, and we got decent turnout, generally positive feedback from that. In the audience that evening was Sanford Hess, who was the prior manager owner of the art before the co-op took over in the fall. And once he got the wheels rolling for him taking over the art theater, early that following year, he asked me, would you like to do something like what you did at Paradiso, but at the art theater? And
so we're talking about the year 2010, somewhere around
yes,
that?
And so 2010 was the first actual New Art film festival. Again, a lot of it for me is an outgrowth of the 2 and 2 I tried to put together through CU Confidential, and then what really is important to me more than anything is that people actually get to see the work of whom I call our friends and neighbors, the people who actually engage in filmmaking.
So you kind of the community gets to discover who they are by being a part of.
I think so, and then conversely, I get to discover who and what is in the community as throughout the year, not just when it's called for entry time for the NAF. People look me up, they figure out who I am when we're at an event somewhere like the art, and they come up to me and say, hey, are you the guy who did CU Confidential? And I go, well, yes, I am. And then, usually, people are going to ask me that because they're interested in somebody's work, or they themselves do work, and they want to let me know about it.
Well, it sounds like an exciting grassroots phenomenon that's taking place.
I think so. And with the NAF going into its 4th year, at least for now, having it stay a reasonable scale, I think, is the best thing for the NAF. We don't have delusions about it becoming the next South by Southwest or the next Sundance. I think it's a different type of festival that serves a different type of need. And in this case, with the NAF purposely taking place alongside the Boneyard Arts Festival, which is a celebration of arts in Champaign County, doing the NAF, I hope, fills that void for the video, film, and media makers in the area, that they know that they have a home for their work during the Boneyard Arts Festival every year.
Well, let's hear a little bit more about this upcoming festival from Lisa Cerezo. Lisa is a local web designer and a longtime theater veteran. She has been a part of the New Arts Film Festival from its very beginnings, helping with public relations. Thanks for joining us on Art Now, Lisa.
Thanks for having me.
Well, before we talk about film, I'm intrigued about the fact that you're involved in magic performance, Lisa.
Yeah.
Who or what is Psychic Joker?
Psychic Joker is a company that my husband and I started with a friend of ours who is himself a performing magician and mentalist. And we met him through some work connections and started to get to know him and what he does as an artist, and realized that, along with a lot of other people, we had some misconceptions about magic and what it can be. It's more than just, pulling a rabbit out of a hat or doing some silly things at a kid's birthday party. And there was a lot of artistic merit to what he was doing. And we wanted to capitalize on that and kind of bring magic back into the forefront of public consciousness as far as the performing arts scene in the area.
It's very theatrical, isn't it?
Definitely. Well, it's a really fantastic way to tell a story.
Yeah, and the connections between performing arts with magic and spin-offs into theater and television.
Yeah, exactly.
We had a local weatherman who was involved in that
Keith
for many
Page.
years, Keith
Right.
Page, former teacher
Should we
of mine.
mention Hugo as an example of?
Oh, Hugo is a really great way to sort of introduce even a transition from film to magic, as George Milius was himself
Or
a
vice
stage
versa,
magician. Or
I
vice
guess.
versa, yeah. But the vaudeville days segueing into the days of film, George Milius was kind of a figurehead for that, where he was, in fact, a stage magician before he started doing some of these kind of magical effects on film. And you talk about production values that are maybe who knows what. I mean, we're talking the early days of cinema. Some of the stuff that he did, now you'd think, well, it looks a little weird, but back then you're thinking, how in the world did he do that?
I mean, it literally was a case of cardboard and duct tape and paint. One of the great things about Hugo, even though, of course, it's a dramatization of a period of George A. Méliès's life, is the fact that there's a couple of flashback sequences were probably accurately given that Hugo itself was made by Martin Scorsese. You know, it does kind of take apart the magical elements and then shows how it comes back together into what we know as the earliest days of cinema from the early, 20th century. So there's definitely a historical value to that film, but it also shows, again, like Lisa mentioned, Méliès as well as other early filmmakers were performers, were stage performers, vaudevillians, etc., until this novelty of, the motion picture came along, and then, the more industrious of them said, what could we do here? Probably a lot of it was kind of in cahoots with the thought of, how can we make money from this new invention?
No doubt.
Well, I'll even add to that Méliès is specifically important, especially from a magician's point of view, because that in the early days of cinema, it took a magician to understand the timing of film, and so the idea of a cut, the idea that you can actually play with time in a movie. Actually, it took a magician and a magician's mindset. Méliès knew that he could play with the idea of time in editing in a thing, simply because of what he was trying to do from a magician's point of view. I mean, he used film early as just another magician's tool, mostly.
Right, the art of
And
misdirection.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to say as an actor, you say, I have a script and I know I'm going to do this series of actions, and you have to do them kind of like we're doing this now. We're doing this all at once. If something happens, oh well. But with magic, it's taking that and you're in control of the entire thing, and you're sort of the director and the actor all at once. And so it's natural that it sort of flows into the film medium. Now, what's really fun is when people will take more theatrical elements and sort of reinsert them into the film viewing experience, which is actually something that Psychic Joker is working on with the art for this coming spring, where we're going to get back to the roots of old style spook shows and have a nice spooky, crazy thing on the screen and some random magical happenstance before and after and probably during and all
I'm all
kinds of
for
fun
that
stuff.
as long as they don't try to throw one over my eyes during the New Art Film Festival. So if any flaming
I'm sure
eyeless
we weren't thinking
heads
of that at
come
all.
rocketing over the audience, I'll know who to blame probably.
Probably, yes.
Well,
Anyway.
and so will you if you attend the New Art Film Festival. That's something to look
You got me
forward
plotting.
to.
The new Mixed Media Film Festival asterisk.
Yeah, just
Anyway, I'm done.
just wear flame-resistant clothing that night. Well, magic has been indistinguishable from film, I think, from the beginning, and it's exciting that we still see the magic in a two-dimensional media. Lisa, what's involved in handling PR for an event such as this?
I will sort of specialize in internet and social media because that's what I do during my quote-unquote day job. And oftentimes I communicate better through social media outlets and it's more efficient. You can get to hundreds and thousands of people all at once rather than going door to door and going, here's a flyer, come do this and whatever. It's sort of an artificial way of expanding on word of mouth, so I really like that concept. So we, put together a Facebook page for the art, which is facebook.com/New Art Film Festival.
And if we wanted to, and we do, find this website, we would go to the Facebook site and it'll be available there.
We'll announce it on there. It'll also be on the Arts website as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lisa. Our third guest on Art Now is Luke Boyce. Luke is a board member of the Art Co-op. He's creative director at Shatter Studios, and he's a founder of the Champaign Urbana Film Society. Thanks for joining us, Luke.
It's an honor to be here.
Luke, can you tell me a little bit about how your work at Shatter Studios fits in with the local film scene?
Sure. Well, Shatterglass is, we are a production company, which means we make films, and that's both narrative and commercial films. We make anything from promotional videos for companies. We work a lot with the U of I, with Carl, places like that. We've made commercials, but we also make short and feature-length films, narrative films that go on to festivals and things like that. So.
Okay, and as far as the New Art Film Festival, clearly the Film Society's quite connected with this. Tell us a little bit about how the Film Society got founded.
Well, the Film Society was originally an idea that I had quite a while ago. So the film societies in general, as we understand them, for many, many years existed only as a way to show older films through most of the 60s and the 70s. Even the University of Illinois had an actual film society, but its goal was, before the advent of VHS and DVD, that was really the only way you could go back and watch, say, except unless you caught it on TV. If you wanted to watch, Casablanca or something like that, you went to a film society and they would show old films. But in the 80s and the 90s, when home video started coming and people started getting their education through that, it kind of killed off the film societies. And as Jason was mentioning earlier, this idea of video coming about and actually creating kind of a revolution in how we make films was very, very important. And I had actually been reading a lot and was very inspired by Richard Linklater, the director, had actually in Austin, Texas, originally created the Austin Film Society, originally as a way for him and his friends to be able to get prints in the very, very early 80s when he was in college and stuff. It was their way of being able to manage to get these prints that they could watch, and it actually grew into this thing. And as, like I said, video started becoming more popular, it actually turned its head into a filmmaking society more, because those tools actually were becoming more viable for the everyday Joe to do. So when Shatterglass started, we started about 7 years ago, and we kind of came about during this revolution right at the cusp of when video was actually starting to emulate film. So we could produce content with the affordability of video, but we could make it, or we strive to make it look more like film, so more national level, or in the case of our films, more like a Hollywood type film. And that inspired us to take that same idea that Linklater had, which eventually the Austin Film Society became so large that it made Austin what is now considered the independent film capital of the country. And we thought, well, we'd like to try that. We'd like to take this idea that anybody can make a film. I mean, really, even at this point, it's gotten to the point where you could theoretically do it on your phone. But now that that is so accessible to people, there's really no excuse not to actually express yourself that way. The way, decades ago, you could just pick up a guitar and start a band. Now you can pick up a camera and make a movie with your friends, and that hasn't been that possible for many years. And so the Film Society came
Used to have
about.
garage bands, and now you can have garage
Exactly.
Garage
That's
movie
kind of how we
studios,
thought.
yeah.
That's kind of how we thought about it. So the Film Society exists to help kind of like facilitate some of the resources, because the one thing people are missing in a lot of cases is just the basic education. And it doesn't take much to offer a workshop on sound or on using your camera right or photography. And so that's what we strive to do. And so obviously it's very important for us to support something like NAF, which is, you know, you can make a film, but unless you show it to people, there's really no point in it. You know, art has to be shown.
And you've also done some education after screenings, haven't you, as part of...
Yeah, so we're focused mainly on film education, filmmaking education, but also film literacy. So, you know, we want to go back to that area where, you know, the most important thing about being a good filmmaker, I think, is understanding film in context. And so we do some discussions, classic film discussions here at the Art and things like that, to try to get people to understand the context between some of the older films or some of the greatest films that have ever been made.
Terrific. Well, in January we met the Champaign movie makers, and it sounds like there's a number of organizations that work very closely together.
Yes.
It's truly a community movement and a very exciting one. I know that the selection process is underway for this year's film showcased at the New Art Film Festival. And let's talk a little bit about perhaps some selections that people have seen in the past, and maybe find out a little bit about what they can look forward to.
Okay. I guess one thing that I'll say briefly before I give you a few examples of films. What do I look for in films for the New Art Film Festival? I try to program a variety. I think it's very healthy for an audience to not only see material that I think they will be interested in and enjoy, but also to give people, you know, a concept of the scope of what filmmaking is. I think that is, you know, definitely one of the boons of attending a film festival, whether it's a smaller event like the NAF or, you know, a humongous one like Sundance, or any sort of film festival in between, is really experiencing the breadth and the variety of what the film medium, filmmaking medium, will say, can provide you as far as a viewing experience with whatever is on the screen right now.
Now, the emphasis on short films, where does that come from?
I think partly, again, because the NAF, at least for right now, is a one-day festival. You know, part of my job is to, you know, pack that day with as much quality and interesting material as possible. Which means that I'm also going to try to refrain from having like 2 or 3 feature-length pieces dominate the whole day. You know, in a more expanded version in the near future, or maybe we have 2 or 3 days to play with the programming and really have a little bit more room to move. Sure, of course, I would program more longer pieces. But in the case like this, I think, you know, 1 or 2 marquee pieces which are feature-length is plenty, and then, you know, playing before those longer pieces, as well as we've done the past couple of years, the first main program at the beginning of the evening, and then the last kind of undergroundy weirdo program at the end of the evening. Why not give people a lot of entry points in a short time frame where they can experience a lot of different types of filmmaking, different subject matter, different styles of filmmaking. Of course, you know, I hope to mix pieces that are dramatic, pieces that are comedic, maybe depending on one's threshold for such things, you know, 1 or 2 pieces per festival that are more experimental.
And again, when is the festival?
It will take place Friday, April 12th, 2013, right here at the Art Theater Co-op. The first show should start at 5 o'clock, and then it will run until 11:30 or midnight. You
can read more about the festival at the Art Theater website, which is www.thecurt.com, but also at the Facebook page, and at the Facebook page you will also see the new website, which will be available to you. So we hope you have enjoyed our show, and we hope it will inspire you to explore the local art scene and make your own art now.